So thank you, Joshua. We've got Joshua Ford here chatting with myself, Damien Fishani. Thank you for making time to chat with DC Comics News and Dark Knight News about a story of the Batman, a great project that you're running, that you're building, which we're very excited to talk about and share with the fans out there. Thank you for making the time.
Of course, no. Thank you for having me. It's a real honor. When I saw you reached out on Twitter, I got so excited about it. So I'm really excited to talk about this with you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, so over the years, we've been so passionate about talking with like-minded people and fans like yourself who are creating art and creating stories and sharing their passion with the world, and that's what we love to do at both the websites of Dark Knight News and DC Comics News. So we might just open up, Josh, and tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Yeah. So I am 22 years old. I have always been a writer and storyteller my whole life. Like ever since I was a kid, I would write comics. I would like draw comics and stuff too, but my art isn't in the project. It's Jackson Durr and Kit Richardson. But I would, do my drawings and write my stories as a kid. And eventually I worked at my hometown newspaper for about 6 years. So I have that journalistic background along with the creative writing background. So it kind of like, I always say that job prepared me for like working in like a professional space and atmosphere. So like when it came to this comic and having to work with a bunch of different people who do, voice acting, art, music, like different skills, it was just really fun to like, collaborate with that because it was like putting my, management skills to the test and things like that. So it's been really fun, but that's kind of a bit of my background. I've always just been a writer. I've always loved superheroes. Robin is my favorite superhero, to be specific, Dick Grayson. Just because I thought he was like the coolest thing on earth growing up, thanks to the Teen Titans show. So he's always been my favorite. So and then Robert Pattinson's Batman is definitely my favorite on-screen Batman. Just that movie, just like it was just awesome. Like I've watched it so many times. Um, I've I'm not afraid to say I've watched it over 50 times. I was going through a tough year. That's my excuse. But it was just really, it connected with me on a different level. And so I like, broke it down and ended up writing this script. But um, it just like reignited my love for Batman essentially because I didn't really, like I said, I was like a Robin fan mostly growing up. Like when my brother Caleb and I would play our Lego Batman games growing up, I would always take Robin instead of Batman, even though I'm the older brother, but I always would take Robin. So it was actually the Gotham TV show that like ignited my love for Batman. And Jackson Durr, our artist too, he loves Gotham. So we've added a bit of Gotham to the story too. But no, that's just kind of my background. I love storytelling and I love superheroes. So yeah.
That's amazing. I agree with you. I think Gotham was an amazing TV show, and I can strongly like really connect with what you're saying around. We find inspiration with some of our superheroes. I too am a huge Batman fan, and you talked about your affiliation with uh, Robert Pattinson's Batman, the Batman in that film, and some of the things that you were going through that year. Um, Before we kind of get into your project, I'd love to kind of get into the intricacies of your connection with the Batman. So, what was it specifically about that story with Robert Pattinson and that film that you were able to find such a deep connection? And I resonate because I have a similar connection with Christian Bale's Batman and the Christopher Nolan story.
Right.
And I myself have seen those films so many times. I can replay back automatically in my head what happens in those films.
Exactly.
But what was it about the persona that was created and the universe that Matt Reeves had created that you were able to really identify with?
Yeah. So, and like I said, it was like the Gotham TV show, and I had only watched it, I guess it was in 2020, winter of 2020, when I watched it, or 2021, because the Batman came out 2022. So yeah, it was that winter before the movie. I watched, like, all 5 seasons of Gotham, and I really liked it because, one, the focus was on Jim Gordon, even though Jim Gordon before that show had never been like one of my favorite characters. I was just He was just kind of there, but I just really liked his character a lot here because, like, the writers just threw so many like awful situations at him, and he was, like, forced to still be a good natured person, make the right decisions, and it was tough on him. Like, it was just really tough on him, and I always say to myself, like, man, I wish I could just have one episode to see him like just do absolutely nothing, like just sip some coffee on a porch and just have a relaxing day, because they just like put him through like insane stuff in that show. So, kind of on that note, with Robert Pattinson's Batman, it's definitely like a different take than like any Batman we've seen like on screen. Um, just in the sense that, like, he doesn't like flaunt his money. He doesn't try to like put on too much of a playboy persona in terms of what we saw in the movie. Like, I think there were like newspaper stories like in the movie that said like Bruce Wayne spotted with mystery woman, things like that. So, but he typically keeps like a low profile. And I think it was the fact that he also looks kind of young, even though Robert Pattinson, I think, is like in his 40s, and this Bruce Wayne is like 29. But I think it was just the fact that he like looked young and also didn't try to like seem like, the rich billionaire Bruce Wayne that we've seen before. That immediately made me like connect to him, just because he was like, oh, this is like relatable. And so, seeing him kind of like, like when he takes off the Batman suit and the Nirvana's playing in the background, and he's just like staring with like his red eyes at like the journals that he's writing, and like forcing himself to like remember details and things out of like compulsion. It's just like it connected to me in the sense that, like, everyone has like this mask that we put on in terms of like, if we have to like go to work on a day that we don't feel like doing it, or just like doing something that we don't like often want to do, but like um but just like doing it because it's what we're supposed to do, essentially. But with him, he's Batman, and being Batman to him is like kind of like his safe zone in a sense, but also it's like out of that place of trauma because he's doing it because of his parents. But just like being in that position of like, okay, I'm this person by day and this person by night, and kind of like, I feel like just seeing that dynamic in this movie was a bit different than the others, mainly because we saw him like physically look so like sad, like when he is Bruce Wayne, because he's trying so hard not to be like himself, like he's trying to be Batman. And in an interview with Robert Pattinson, I saw, like, in the first scene when he was with like the police in the mayor's office, like looking through and being a detective, one thing Robert Pattinson said was when he was like walking through the room, he was trying to picture himself as like invisible, like he wasn't even there, because that's what like Bruce Wayne would do. Because, like, you're dressed as a bat in like a leather type suit, you look ridiculous if you think about it. But he was just trying to like relate to that feeling of, um I've got to just do this because this is what I need to do in my head. I can't think about anything else aside from this mission that I'm on. So just kind of seeing that like contrast between the two sides, and the pain and the struggle that it took to like maintain that, I think it was different than what we've seen before. So
I agree with you as far as like going back and watching that story of Robert Pattinson's Batman. It was definitely a very grounded, very raw version of the battles that Bruce Wayne has with his two lives, and kind of working through what he believes that he must do or what's right as Batman. And that's probably a little bit, in comparison to the other Batman films, I think it's probably a little bit probably hidden away in the other stories, whereas it's really at the forefront. So yeah, I think that makes sense. But yeah, marvelous story, and I love the universe that Matt Reeves is building and how he's grounding those characters. Um, but when we shift now from, I want to shift now to your project and what you're building. So when we shift from cinema and we move to comic books, I myself over the years have had so much joy and such a great experience reading different comic books, and I've been very particular in the Batman stories and the graphic novels that I read. But I think you're building something incredibly special here with a digital motion comic book where we've got imagery, we've got sound, all over and narration, all overlaid together. We've got these different mediums all coming together, which I think is so unique. Um, and it just adds layers to the experience of reading comics. So you've got the story of the Batman. You've got it's a 3-part story, and I believe part 1 is coming out November 29th.
Yep,
If I'm
you
correct.
got it.
Yeah. And you're working on this project with what seems to be an amazing cast of very talented people. I watched the YouTube story around Jackson Durr and his equipment and the process he's been going through to bring the characters to life from a visual perspective. And I myself am a drawer. So I was drawn to his story, and I sat there and going through that. But I'm I'm really interested in, I think, the narrative that you're building around this story, where you've said, this is a story about the tough decisions that we make in life, and like there's a strong narrative there about working through tough decisions, but doing this through the eyes of the Batman. So, can you talk a little bit about that and why you gravitated to that anchor point, and share a
Yeah,
little bit about that?
yeah, definitely. Yeah, when like I said, like the reason why I connected so much with this Bruce Wayne is just because of the emotional aspect and seeing like him being torn about things. So like at the end of the movie when he was like, I have to become more than vengeance. I need to provide hope. I'm like, okay, I was always like, that's cool. But like in reality, it's like, okay, it's cool if you want to do that, but like how do you actually do that? It's you can say it and want to do it, but it's harder than you think, to go from someone who's known for just like you know, being very aggressive and fearful to like someone who's like, providing hope to an entire city and even like on a personal level of being hopeful as, his actual self of Bruce Wayne. So I wanted to explore that part a bit. So like when I wrote the script, I was writing it kind of as an intent like a sequel because I wanted to keep like the characters within their traits and things like that. But it's like it's an Elseworld story. It's not supposed to be like a canonic sequel. But yeah, so basically with him trying to like make that transition from vengeance to hope and what does that look like? I thought there was a lot to go off of there. In one sense, because a lot of people like you and me connect to Batman in general so well, and I think this one specifically is in a unique spot because of how the movie left off. So it's like, okay, we're going to see like a different side to him in a sense, and it was fun getting to expand upon Bruce's character because there's a lot of Bruce Wayne in my story. There's a lot of Batman as well, but there's a lot of him, like interacting with Bella Real, the mayor, or his longtime friend of Dex Starling, who comes back into Gotham, and even Richard Grayson. So he's like meeting a lot of different people, and as Bruce Wayne, and he's also on the flip side meeting a lot of people as the Batman, because good old Joe Chill comes back into the scene, and Bruce doesn't know yet that Joe Chill did what he did, but it does get revealed. But and then Tony Zuko comes in, and he's responsible for killing the Graysons. So it's a lot of new villains. The main villain is a serial killer named the Ghost. There's a lot of villains making it tough on Bruce to really like hold himself back from like wanting to exact vengeance on like his parents, Richard Grayson's parents, and just like bringing justice overall to his city, while he's also trying to like be a good person as Bruce Wayne and do more for like the city with Bella Real. And even like in his personal life with Dex Starling, like he hasn't had a friend since basically Dex Starling when they were like teenagers 13 years ago in the story. So he hasn't really like had that experience of, oh, this is what a friendship is like. And things like that. So it's just a lot of putting Bruce into different situations to where like you can kind of like see how he handles it. And I think it helps people to like see someone like, Batman going through things that we often go through, making these decisions of like, okay, this person shows up in my life, but oh, here's someone from my past creeping up and it's making things difficult. So it's like, how does he handle this type of things? And it's also just intended to be like a fun story, because I like people to like kind of break away and just like think about the characters and things like that. So yeah, that's kind of where I wanted the story to go, is that emotional level of like what um a person is capable of doing when like all this pressure is on them to be one thing, but they actually want to like be another, and they're not sure of what to do. So it's just kind of like, that's kind of why I wanted to do that, just because there's like a lot to do with that narrative alone. So if that makes any sense.
No, it doesn't make perfect sense, and I think it's such a great reason why people should get involved and be involved and experience the book when it comes out, when part one comes out, because I think it's such a strong anchor point that's relatable to so many people in our lives. We go through a lot of different challenges, and what you're talking about there, where Bruce wants to really anchor on hope and make that shift rather than being very vengeful and revengeful. And he's
Hmm.
kind of pulling him in different directions. At the end of the day, he's not a superhero. He's a human, and he's
Right.
going to get, I guess, influenced, right, by all these amazing characters that you're putting into the story. I think it's a really unique balance of characters. And getting back to what you said originally, where Dick Grayson and Nightwing slash Nightwing is your personal favorite character. He's such an amazing character, and you've decided to put him into this story. Without giving too much away, part one, I believe, is 88 pages. So part one is the bulk of the story. How
Hmm.
much can we expect to see of Dick early on in this story, and how can you share how influential he may or may not be
Yeah.
in the story?
Yeah, no, he's a huge part of the story overall, and he's definitely a big part of part one. You'll see a lot of Dick Grayson in part one. So, because he's very important to Bruce. He's important to me because, like I said, he's my favorite superhero. But when I was writing the story, like I said, and like you noted, there's a lot of interesting characters that come into the fold. So it's like trying to balance how much they show up and how impactful they'll be. But I knew I wanted Dick Grayson to be really like prominent because he's ultimately a part of Batman's overall switch in demeanor. Because he's a kid in this story. He's 13 years old. He's similar to Bruce in the sense that like they went to a similar trauma, and so Bruce trying to like become Hope, and the accident happens. He's left with a decision to like, okay, because like in the first movie when the mayor's son was left orphaned or without a father, you could see that Bruce was like having flashbacks staring at the kid who just lost his dad. So here's another situation where he's face to face with another kid, and he's like, okay, if I want to become Hope, how do I help this kid? So that part is kind of more towards parts 2 and 3, because it's mainly like, um, you get to meet the character of Dick Grayson and kind of the family dynamic of, John and Mary Grayson with their son. We get a little bit of that, and so Bruce and him don't, like, technically meet until, like, the end of part 1. So it's, like, building up towards that, and then it will build off into the other parts of them and their, like, relationship together. So Dick Grayson is definitely a big character in this story.
I think that's fantastic. Like I was saying, he's such a great character, and it's a very unique, I think, a unique blend of characters where you've got this Elseworlds universe with Robert Pattinson's Batman, and we've got Nightwing coming into that world with your take on that, which is amazing. When we talk about some of your inspirations behind this story, I think I saw that you've got, if anyone's read it, a very famous graphic novel, Batman: Dark Victory,
Yep.
as a book. which is an amazing book. If people haven't read that, I highly recommend people read that book.
Definitely.
And then I think also Hawkman from the Marvel
Hawkeye.
universe. Sorry, Hawkeye. Sorry. Yeah. So can you explain? I can't believe I got that wrong. Can
It's
you
all good.
explain the correlation with the two um, and why they kind of influence the story?
Yeah. So obviously Dark Victory, with it being like, Robin's origin story in a sense of how he joined Batman in like his third year. And like, that one had Tony Zuko and everything like that. So I was looking at that, and I also looked at the Batman the animated series episode of like Robin's Reckoning when it was also like, Robin in the circus in his early days, things like that. So I was referencing that for like, Batman and Robin and kind of like keeping things connected with that story because it's a really great comic, as you mentioned, and a good story. And so, with the intention of like trying to throw as much as I can at Bruce, I was like, okay, let me see what parts I can take from this story and make it make sense with this universe. And so with Hawkeye is probably my favorite Marvel superhero. So I know it's like a weird choice of superheroes with it being, Batman's sidekick and then a guy who just shoots bow and arrows and has no powers. But I just liked archers as a kid. I thought they were like the coolest people on earth. I can't shoot a bow and arrow really well, but I might get there one day. But no, Hawkeye, Marvel had a Disney TV show and I think it was 2020 with, Kate Bishop and Clint Barton. I forget Haley Steinfeld and Hawkeyes. I I can't believe I'm blanking on his actor, but anyway, they had a really good dynamic in the show. It's like a 6 episode show, and he's like a grizzled Avenger who's semi-retired ish, and then this kid just comes in and like ruins his holiday because it is a Christmas themed show. She ruins his holiday by coming in and like bringing up his past, and so they're kind of like forced to work together in a sense. And he's like really reluctant, like, oh, I can't believe I'm carrying this kid around, have to like save her and all this other stuff. And like she grew up a Hawkeye fan, and so she's like fangirling and everything, and has all these ideas and trying to like be cool in front of him. So I thought that would be like a cool dynamic to have with like Batman and Robin in the sense that Batman is like this intimidating type figure in Gotham, and here's this kid who's Dick Grayson is known as being like kind of happy go lucky. He has like a positive spin on life typically, and he kind of like brings that light. I mean, he's pretty colorful in his colors, and so his characteristics are kind of like matching that brightness. So he kind of comes in, even though there's the tragedy of his parents and everything. It's cool to be like with Bruce Wayne, so he's kind of like happy about all of that. But Bruce, without saying too much, as the story progresses, he's like, I don't know if this is going to work out with my other identity. Though he wants to catch Tony Zuko as Batman, he is trying to like find that balance of it. So without spoiling too much, you'll see a lot of like that quote unquote Batman and Robin dynamics in part two and especially part three. And you'll kind of see that like back and forth of like, will Bruce let him into his life? Will like Richard find out about the Batman thing? So it gets really fun, and like almost we're probably over halfway done with part two in terms of production right now. So we're getting into like the thick of things, and it's like really fun, like going back and forth with Jackson and Kay in terms of like the page creation and making sure like we highlight the certain things and making sure the tone is okay and everything. So it's been really fun in that aspect of creating that environment. So yeah, it's with Dark Victory and Hawkeye. I just kind of threw it together and see what happens. And I think it's a good fit for this story. So I hope people enjoy it.
I can definitely resonate because my second favorite DC hero is Oliver Queen, Green Arrow.
Nice. Yeah.
So when Arrow came out,
Oh, yeah.
I just fell in love with the TV series and Stephen Amell, and he
Arrow's an
quickly
awesome
became
show.
Arrow was fantastic. So when you had Hawkeye in there, I had to ask because I just think it's such a unique combination. But that's a great segue. You were talking about your team. So you've got Kay and Jackson. You've got the pencil and with Jackson. Kay's doing the coloring. And from an artistic and collaboration perspective, creating a digital motion comic, like I was saying, the experience, I can't wait until people go through the experience with this because it's like a vacuum. It draws you in, and looking at your trailer and looking at some of the examples of what's to come, I can't wait for people to experience what you're creating. I think it's so special. Can you talk a little bit about what that collaboration is like, and when you're putting a story on paper and you're overlaying the art and the sound and the music, are you physically together doing that, or do you have to do it remotely? And how do you three come together to create what we're going to experience?
Yeah, so very good question. So Jackson, K, and I live in like three completely different parts of the nation. It's like we're so far apart. So we actually meet through Google Meet, and we'll go through like the script and everything. So like it was first just me and Jackson because I reached out to Jackson when I decided I wanted it to be a comic. He was the first artist I reached out to, and I thought it was a long shot, but it turned out he loved the idea and he bought in really quickly. And everyone in the comic and the project bought on really quickly, which was really, it feels nice as a writer to see that, and it's validating. So it's me and Jackson for a while, and we mainly communicate through like email, talking about each page, each panel, and things like that. And about 6 months in, we decided to add Kay as a colorist to kind of speed up our process as well. And she came in and like they both offer so much knowledge in terms of just like not only art but also just like movies and just storytelling and everything. So it's been a really great collaboration in terms of what they all can bring to it. So we'll like, for example, we'll look at the script that I wrote and I made like a duplicate version of the script, which I shared with them, and break it into like each page and say this page will have like a lot of panels, or it might just be one single image on the page type of thing. So I kind of try to break it down like that. And then Jackson himself will do like the outline since he does the pencils and inks. So he'll give us the outline in an email and we'll give him some feedback to say, hey, maybe you should focus on like this emotion here. And he does a good job of picking up like the emotions that are needed from the script. He'll say, oh, I want to focus on this and have this sort of camera angle to make it a really tight shot to get that emotion captured there. And so he kind of thinks like me, like we look at it and we think about a movie. So we're like always saying like camera angles, even though it's like, a comic. But he does a good job in outlining it. And then Kay does like an insane job of like just making it all come to life with her colors. Cause like she also had a video on our YouTube of her coloring process. And like one of the quotes that she said, it was something along the lines of, I like starting things off in the dark and then just slowly turning the lights on for characters. And that's, you can like tell by looking at the pages, because like when they need to be bright, they just like really pop and they have like a lot of like good emotions behind it. Like with Dick Grayson, like I was saying, he's kind of like a new kind of ray of sunshine for Bruce. So like in his scenes, sometimes he's like really like there's a lot of brightness around him and things like that. So Kay does a good job of like highlighting and making sure the tone is right with whether they need to be warm tones or cooler tones and things like that. So they do a good job because I don't like I'm not great with like terminology for art and things like that. I'm just like just make it feel sad, and then they just do a good job of that. So it's been fun working back and forth with them. We'll have like not even monthly Zoom calls, but we'll look at the script, and we'll talk about certain scenes that go together. And some meetings are longer than others, just depending on like what we have going on. But we'll talk about the script, the schedule that we have, and everything like that. So it's a lot of communication, almost every day, and just making sure things are right. I even ask them about like videos that I make and like the trailers, making sure it looks right and things like that. So they're involved in like a lot of the process with it too. So that part's been really fun getting to work with such talented artists.
So is it fair to say for you, or maybe you can speak for the three of you, is this pretty much a full-time job for you at the moment? You've got other things in your life, but as far as time commitment is concerned, on average, how many hours a week would you be spending putting all this together?
Oh man, I don't think I've thought about the hours before, but it depends. Because the bulk of it, like I do have like a full time job. So a bulk of it I do on the weekends, which I can like work on like the editing itself of the pages, like making a digital comic. I could do that for hours. So I like spend most of my Saturday and Sunday, occasionally trying to do that. But it's hard to give an estimate on hours, but I definitely will work maybe like an hour, maybe an hour a day, like on the week, in the week itself, like Monday through Friday, whether it's working on like social media, interacting with the great fans that we have, preparing posts, and editing videos and things like that. Um, it's a lot, so it is kind of like a full time to part time job, but it's like it's one of those things like it's you have fun doing it, so it doesn't feel like a lot of work, which is why I guess it's hard to like kind of quantify how much work it is, but it's definitely been a lot. I wrote the script 2 years ago, which is crazy to think, and we got the voice actors. A lot of the voice lines were done probably about 2 years ago as well, and like we did some redos depending on like script changes and things like that. So I keep in touch with like the voice actors, and they're all great. My brother is doing the music, and another friend from college, he's doing part of the music too with like the metallic pieces. So they do a really great job of like enhancing the story because it's so cool. Like we did like a behind the scenes of like creating Joe Chill's theme on our YouTube with Spencer, and it really like goes so well with the Joe Chill character, and it just enhances the story that much more. So like everyone involved really is so talented that it's like my job is just to make sure it all fits together and not mess up what they did because they did such a good job. So it's been really fun trying to manage it all so it doesn't feel like too much work, but it definitely is a lot of hours that goes into it each week.
That's fantastic, and I think it's really important for people to know, your passion and how much time you're spending to apply your craft and to put everything together. And I think when everyone's working remote and you're on different parts of the nation, like you're saying, it takes an even bigger effort. It's not as if you're all in a room, and it's a little bit easier to share ideas and to make things happen. So, but I think that's a great segue into the incredible voice actors that you've been able to pull together. Looking at some of the clips that you sent me with the overlaid music and voicing the characters. You've got Gavin Duff, that's Alfred Pennyworth, Joe Pesaro, who's playing Dick, Gary Lyons as Jim, Isabella as Dex. You've got Danny Doyle as Joe Chill, and the cast goes on. Can you talk a little bit about how you pulled this cast together, and just the process of you writing the script, and then bringing those characters to life? I, some of the other interviews I've done at San Diego Comic Con and interviewing voice actors have such an incredible talent, and I don't think they get enough recognition for their work and their craft. So, if we could speak a little bit about this group, because I think this is a special group of talented people. So, I'd love to hear a little bit more about them.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right. They do so much hard work, and especially with like a lot of that's going on in like the industry with AI, it's like it can get overshadowed, but you can't replicate like what these people do. So the process of it was when I started the project, it was actually going to be like a Lego stop motion. So I was planning on just doing like all the Lego animation and things like that, but it ended up I was like, this is gonna be too much work, especially like with the job I had at the time. So that's when I switched to it being a comic. But a lot of the voice actors, like Danny, he was excited for it to be a Lego project. But it was like I advertised it as like a Lego one. So like their lines, like the fact that they um deliver their lines so well that it can translate from intended to be Lego to intended to be like a comic, just shows like how good they are at what they do because they brought so much emotion into it. And so I went to a website. I think it was like Voices 123 is what it's called. I found it in college and I just kind of wrote it down in my notebook. I was like, this might come in handy later. And so I would just like put auditions out there about like the characters. And so I would get them to like audition. And some of them, like for Isabella, Joe Passaro was our Robin with the audition, but Isabella actually auditioned for the Robin role. And so I heard her voice and I went to like through her page and I would listen to her more. I was like, she would be a perfect Dex Starling. And she ended up being like a perfect Dex Starling. And she loves the character. And she put a lot of work into that character and she just nailed it. Like it's perfect and it's awesome. And so like each one of them did like so much work into it. They put so much emotion into it and they like bought in. Like I did an interview with like each of the main voice actor cast and a couple will be releasing in the couple next months. But like they really liked, I think they liked the emotional side of it too, because I asked a lot of them like what are their favorite projects to like do, whether it be like commercials, voiceover, and a lot of them said character work because just of like, you know, getting into that zone and bringing a story to life. And it's just really cool to see and have that like sort of talent to work with to where like you have like a really emotional scene that you need like the one scene with Richard Grayson and Bruce, it's in like our latest YouTube video about like how I edit the motion comic. Joe and a lot of the voice actors do like multiple lines or multiple takes of a line. So he did like a really good job building up like the emotion for Dick Grayson because like I said, he's Dick Grayson on one hand is really excited to be around Bruce Wayne, but he also like, you know, he's trying to like hide his sadness in a sense and he doesn't want to like, you know, seem like a whiny little kid when Bruce is around. So he does a really good job of like building up Richard's emotions and like displaying it in a way that like it is like a 13-year-old kid. So it's just like a lot they all have a lot of range. Some did multiple characters like Jay Scow, he voices one of our crooks, Johnny Hamer, who's a pyrotechnic. And he also voices Harvey Dent, who makes an appearance in our comics. So they have a lot of range. We have a really cool cast. I even voiced Bruce Wayne in Batman because you know, it's a Batman project and I was like, I'll be Batman. And so, like I said, I watched the movie a bunch of times and I like memorized all the lines. And like when I watch it, sometimes I'll just like, you know, just say the lines just because like I'm just like locked in, I guess. So I'll just like say the lines with the actors. So like I was like listening to my voice like as Bruce Wayne. I was like, I think I could do a good Bruce Wayne voice. So I did Bruce Wayne and it's fun to do. It's tough though. Like I have to really like warm up for it because like my voice, I wouldn't say cracks, but it's so hard to like maintain that like level of one volume, but also just like the pitch and everything that he uses. It's hard to maintain that. So I have to like really get warmed up, like just one, like saying lines, make sure I'm like hydrated and everything, which I learned was important through the other voice actor. So I'm like, maybe I'll start drinking water before I start saying these lines. But no, voice acting is tough, and like I did so many takes for Bruce and Batman. So it's really impressive to see like when these voice actors submitted me their lines, and it's just like even if they do multiple takes, it's like each one is just perfect. So it's hard to like choose between which ones. But no, working with voice talent is definitely like I don't take it for granted because it's like these guys are professionals and they really help bring the story to life from the motion comic side. So I'm excited for people to hear these characters come to life.
Absolutely. And I think in one of the YouTube videos, in one of your YouTube videos, I heard your Bruce Wayne Batman voice, which I thought was amazing. It was brilliant. So whatever
Well,
you
thanks.
did to do that, I thought you created that character really, really well. What's it like hearing your own voice back as another character? The first or second time, how critical are you of yourself?
Very, very critical. It's hard because the first time I do it, I know it sounds good. Like I have to tell myself that because like I'll listen to it and I'm like, this is a really good line. But sometimes, like, since I do like all the audio editing and stuff, I'll get stuck on like this one line where I like don't pick up a word correctly because like I said, it's kind of hard to maintain the voice sometimes. So like in my first couple takes, I like trail off at the end of the sentence. I'm like, oh, I got to do that one again, or I have to make this one sound stronger as Batman. So it's like literally when I like send clips of it to like my brother or Jackson and Kay to like just look at the overall scene, I'm like, just let me know what you think about the lines, guys. Don't hold back on me now. But no, I'm pretty critical on myself and just the audio editing in general because like we said, it's a really talented cast. I don't want to like throw off like their sound or anything either. But as Batman, it's fun. It is ultimately fun to do the voice because I think I kind of touched on it before in like a video. I don't have like as deep a voice as Robert Pattinson. So like I'll try to make my Bruce Wayne voice like a little bit lighter and I'll like have my Batman one as like deep as I can go with his like, his rhythm and flow basically. But it's a it comes together well. Like in terms of like the scenes with Batman versus the scenes with Bruce Wayne, because I try to think like, okay, if Batman's talking to Richard Grayson, it's gonna have to sound a bit different than Bruce because he doesn't want them to put two and two together. So it's things like that. I'm constantly thinking about it with my lines. So I'm pretty critical about how it all sounds, but I think it all comes together pretty well. So I'm not too worried about it. I haven't had any negative feedback on the Batman voice so far. So yeah.
No, I think you've done the voice quite well. So as we kind of wrap up and we head towards the conclusion, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe you've got another trailer coming out. Can you talk a little bit about when fans can expect that trailer to hit?
Yeah, it's been a while since we had like a trailer and the teaser trailer. A lot of people were excited on that, and we still get comments about how it looks. And I was like, okay, it's called a teaser trailer, so I got to do an official trailer. So that one's coming very soon, and I was writing the script for it, and I was like, I got to make this one like really, really impactful, and I wanted to like kind of talk about more of like the details of the plot rather than like the teaser was just kind of like a overview of everything, and this one kind of like touches on like those emotional points of it a bit more. So that one I'm excited to finish because I'm finishing that essentially. So yeah, it'll be out soon and people can see that on our YouTube and on our Instagram, and Jackson will post it on his other socials as well. So we've had a lot of great engagement on social media, especially recently. And that's one of the things I like was excited for the most, like in doing this project, is just the fan and community that the Batman just like has in the DC community. Cause it's like, it's different from any other like community of like superheroes or like TV. I feel like it's a really close community because like we all kind of like share some like the same experiences and why we like relate to the characters. So I like was excited because I feel like a lot of people could like, really have fun with this story. And a lot of people have been having fun on our social media pages and like expressing their gratitude, which has been cool to see because it's just like a story I wrote like in my room one day. So it's cool to see it all come together and people being really receptive of it. So I'm always thankful to see those comments and people like you who are like sharing it and doing your due diligence, not only for our comic, but also just like the DC community in general. So I love the support all around.
We can't wait till all those come out. So we'll definitely be sharing those on our social media as well, and trying to engage the fans. I think you're building something that's really unique. You yourself, uh, Joshua, you've got so much talent with what you're creating, and I'm so happy that you're sharing that with the world. And you've got a great cast and a great team around you, which is awesome. So we can't wait to see the finished product, and I'm sure there are so many fans out there that are eagerly awaiting not just the trailer but the full story as well. So um, we are looking forward to sharing this with everyone. So thank you for your time, and thank you for making the time to chat to me on the other side of the world. Um,
Yeah, no
so
problem.
yeah,
I
so thank
appreciate
you.
you taking the time because, like you said, you're on the other side of the world. So it means a lot to me that one, you reached out wanting to use your platform and you've created such a unique community in your own with your websites and social media. So it's really cool to be a part of that too, because like I said, it's just like cool community in general in DC. And so when I see fans like you and just people like you who have, passion about the characters that I have passion for, it's like it's part of the reason why I do this, is just to connect with great people like you. So definitely glad to have gone to do this and really thankful for the opportunity.
You are very welcome, Joshua. Thank you. Thank you for everything.